Hello, my name's Joel Hickman. I'm a YouTuber and I do some videos. I do videos here on YouTube. I've got, I don't know, about 150 videos, 120 videos, not sure. And at this point, and I'm just going over here in this video about for beginners that have just taken a few lessons and want to make their own studio. Make this video about how to construct your own studio and what types of things you're going to want to start with before you start with whether you're a wheel throwing person or not, and if you do wheel throwing, what to do for a wheel throwing. So, first, for any studio, you're going to need a kiln, and getting your kiln needs to be cheap to start. You don't want to buy a new kiln. If you are rich, go ahead and get you a nice new kiln. Want to say you want to get a new kiln, go to Olympic Kilns and get an Olympic kiln because an Olympic kiln you won't ever have to replace. Only thing you replace is parts. Never replace the kiln unless you damaged it somehow. So I have an Olympic kiln. I've been using it for 10 years with no troubles. And I bought a Paragon. It lasted a year and a half. I've fooled around with a lot of electric kilns. They last a year or so and they fizzle out because when I fire pottery, I'm into making pottery and I fire it 3 or 4 times a month. So I use it quite a bit and it wears out really quickly when you buy a cheap kiln. So what I suggest you do with you're going to have kiln problems if you buy a cheap kiln, and you're not going to have kiln problems at all if you buy a perfect Olympic kiln. That's really expensive. So if budget is really important at the beginning, not to waste time, waste money. So build a kiln. Learn how to build your own kiln. If you can build a kiln and get the pottery hot, you know how to get the pottery hot. That's part of the whole shebang. That's getting the pottery hot to cook it. If you're not dependent on the electricity working, then you're ahead of the ball. So get yourself a fiber blanket, 50-gallon barrel kiln and build it yourself with fiber blanket, 50-gallon barrel, nichrome wire, and pit-fired ceramic buttons. Make yourself 3-inch ceramic buttons, holes in them like a button, and you wire the buttons to on the inside of the barrel with the fiber blanket in between the button and the barrel. The wire sticks out on the outside of the barrel, and you twist it on there. It holds the button and holds the fiber blanket in place, and that'll last for years if you make a nice one. And just use a 50-gallon barrel. You can do raku with that and have handles and lift the barrel up and do raku with that. You gotta have the bricks underneath it and a little flue area for the fire to go inward and upward in those bricks. So like a little L-shaped channel in the bricks that directs the fire upward into the kiln. And fire brick, of course, 3,500 degree fire brick that you're going to build the base of the kiln out of. It's just stacked brick. You need about 20 bricks or whatever. That should do $150 worth of brick, $150 worth of barrel and fiber and wire, and a $150 burner is what you're looking at. So you're looking at $450 for the kiln and burner, another $50 for the hose and the tank, and voila, you've got a kiln for $500. Okay, and it's going to last a long time with that barrel kiln with gas for $500. And you can do gas firing, which gives you oxidation, reduction, salt firing, any kind of fire you want. Replacing the fiber blanket on the inside is like $60, big deal. Place that fiber blanket over and over until that barrel rusts apart and disappears. And and if you paint the barrel and you paint the barrel over and over, it won't rust so much. Paint the barrel with high temperature paint, it won't rust so much and will last longer. So that's what you do for your kiln, and that's what you need to do. You need to build a kiln. Don't go messing around looking for a kiln. If you can find the guts of a electric kiln, like the shell of an electric kiln with no guts for free or $50, more power to you. You saved on the $150 barrel. The barrel and the barrel and the fiber blanket only costs $150. So if it costs over $150, don't buy it. And you're buying a kiln. If it costs over $150, just don't buy it. And when you find that kiln for $150, buy it. If it works, the kiln works, it's electric and it's used, don't pay over $500, or you'll have a brand new handmade kiln that lasts better. That's gas. It's not electric, because gas has a way to fire that you can't fire with electric. You can fire just like electric with gas. It's just oxidation firing. If you reduce the atmosphere and burn all the oxygen out of the kiln, all the whole firing, at the firing at the when all the glaze is liquid, it will change the color of your glaze and have more vivid colors. You can make copper reds and things like that that are really cheap reds instead of your strontium reds and things like that. And your reds that are in the electric kiln, you'll notice the red glaze in the electric kiln costs, I don't know, $8.50 a pound for dry material, whereas the other glazes cost $2 a pound because of what's in the red glaze. And if you want to make a copper red, copper is pretty abundant on the earth, and you can make a copper red for $1.50, and it looks like red as a cherry or an apple, and it'll have the texture of an apple color too. It's really nice. So you can do that with a gas kiln. So don't limit yourself to electricity. Quit thinking electric glazes are cool. They're not. Electric glazes are not cool, and a low temperature kiln is not cool, because these electric kilns don't go well to cone 10. They go to cone 6. Why does everybody fire to cone 6? Because they have an electric kiln. You know? Why does everybody fire to cone 06? Because they have a cheap, shitty electric kiln. Get yourself a good gas kiln the day you do it, and build it yourself. Learn how to fire all by yourself with fire. So that's done. That goes for any potter of any studio, of any sort, of any household. After that, start making your workspace. You need a wedging table with a cutting wire. Cutting wire that's stationary, that you don't have to hold the wire. And you cut on that wire, and it needs to be a very stable table that you build yourself. Build it yourself and make it very, very heavy wood, so that and bolt it all together. If you screw it all together or bolt it all together, and use very thick, heavy pieces of wood to build it, and top it with a very thick piece of plywood, and then cover the very top of it with a piece of canvas, and just nail the canvas around the edges. Stretch it out yourself and nail it around the edges. It'll be fine, work just fine. You want a canvas top table with wire cutter. That's for any ceramics professional, or any ceramic artist. A wedging table, gotta have it. After that, just a table to work on is fine, or a wheel and some shelves. And once you have your wedging table built, you got your kiln ready, you're ready to buy your materials. Uh, Buying bulk is not necessarily a good idea, but once you get to a certain volume of clay a month, you need to quit buying pre-mixed glazes, and quit buying small orders of clay. If you're buying under 10 boxes of clay, you're going to pay pretty much full price for your clay. If you buy, this is the way these distributors do it. If you buy 20 boxes, that's where you get the most discount, and you'll get like 35% off. Okay. That 35% off is critical when you're producing work to sell in the long term. If you're just a hobby artist, you don't use over 100 pounds a month, just stick to buying it from your local supplier for, $50 a box, approximately. Dollar a pound is what you're going to pay. At least that's what I do locally. I pay $1 a pound if I buy 10 boxes or less. And if I'm going into production for a long period of time, I buy all the materials in advance. And one thing is with clay, it dries out. If you buy 2,000 pounds of clay and you're a beginner, by the time you get to the end of it, the clay's going to be all stiff. It's only really has a shelf life, even though it's in a bag, it's not really well air sealed in that thing. And they're not vacuum sealed bags or anything. And their shelf life is about 4 to 6 months before they start to stiffen up and you have to wet it. So then after you've got your materials, you're going to need to plan this right away is a reclaim area. There's always reclaim. There's always a mistake that you got some clay left over, something broke, some trimmings, whatever. You need to reuse that. Even if you're a beginner, don't waste those materials and just throw them away when you mess up, because that's a lot of money, a dollar a pound for all your mess ups and all your trimmings. So it gets to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars in a year. So you need to buy two 25-pound bags of plaster. So we built our wedging table, and the rest is just a table or whatever. And we bought our materials, say $500 worth of materials, and we've got a $500 kiln, and we've got maybe a $300 wedging table. You're already looking at $1,300 just to do anything. Then you look, if you want a wheel, $1,300 for the wheel. Don't go cheap on the wheel. Get you a brand new one. You'll never buy it ever again in your life. If you buy a brand new one for over $1,000, buy an old used one. Just don't know what you're going to come up with. You're going to have to fix it at some point, because they like to sell 20-year-old wheels like they're brand new lately. Because nobody sells a wheel. You keep the wheel. You get the kiln and get the pottery molds and all the tools, but you can't get the wheel. They want arm and a leg for a wheel. Everybody wants a wheel because they're just fun to play on. Anyhow, so you're looking at 2,600 for a setup and the wheel. 2,600. You need to have all that at the same time, so that before you start. 2,600. Calm down, doggies. And then if later on in life you can think of other things like uh, um, an extruder on the wall of your studio, an extruder to make coils and things like that, and extrusions and tubes and things. Extruders are very useful, and a slab rolling table is very useful. If you buy a Bailey slab rolling table, they specialize in those things. Bailey slab roller will last a lifetime. A Soldner clay mixer will last a lifetime. But, the moment you get into production pottery, if you're still buying wet clay, that's not good. If you're still buying wet clay and you're into production, this video is for beginners. But in the case that you're into production pottery and you see this video and you don't have a Soldner mixer mixing your own clay, you're wasting 30% of your material money on clay, because that Soldner mixer will make it to where you don't pay for water, but water like you're paying for clay, and you won't pay for that weight in the shipment either. So uh, that pretty much covers it. You're looking at $2,600 to be a wheel thrower, and you're looking at $1,300 to be any kind of ceramic artist. That's a lot more than a painter that buys their easel and paints and all that. But that 500 in materials should be able to. You would have, say, probably 6 boxes of clay there and $200 worth of glaze. And that $200 worth of glaze would buy you about 10 different pints of glaze, 10 or 20 different pints of glaze, and probably 15 pints of glaze. You get 15 pints of glaze and 300 pounds of clay, and go from there with your $500 kiln. The wedging table, you could get by without it for a while. If you don't have that 300. The first thing you do, like I said, get the kiln. 500 for the kiln, then it's materials, then it's the materials and shop tools. You can keep adding them as you go. Let's start with a wedging table. Thanks.